This is the first of two lectures on turning ERDs into tables. And in this first one we cover how to convert entities and one-to-one relationships. You will recall that logical design involves systematically converting an organization's data model, as captured in the ERD, into a set of tables. The result is a set of database tables. This lecture covers how to convert entities and one-to-one relationships. So, at the end of this lecture, you will be able to convert entities in an ERD into tables and represent one-to-one relationships in a logical database design. The conversion of an entity is straightforward. An entity becomes a table and the attributes become fields or columns. The entity identifier becomes the primary key in the table. And to indicate that the field or set of fields is the primary key, we underline it. The example on the slide shows how you convert the salesperson entity in the ERD to a table in the logical design. The name of the entity becomes the name of the table, the attributes in the entity becomes columns or fields in the table, and the entity identifier in the entity becomes the primary key. To represent a one-to-one relationship, we copy the primary key of the mandatory side to the optional side. If the relationship is symmetric, i.e. both are mandatory or optional, either primary key can be copied. The copied primary key then becomes a foreign key, which we'll indicate by italicizing the field. The example illustrates this. Thus, to represent the one-to-one relationship between salesperson and office in the ERD, we copy the primary key from office number, into the salesperson table. When you do the opposite, i.e. copy the primary key of the optional side to the mandatory side, as we did below, the resulting table will contain empty values. Thus, in the example below, the foreign key SP number in office will have an empty value for every office that doesn't have a salesperson in it. A foreign key is an attribute in a table that is also the primary key of another table in the same database. Foreign keys are a mechanism for linking two tables in a relational database. Both keys must store data of the same type, for example integers, but they do not need to have the same name, as the example illustrates. Foreign key values must be a subset of primary key values. In other words, every foreign key value must correspond to a primary key value, although the reverse does not have to be true.